Hello again. It's Michael Sheridan here, back to talk to you about your dreams. Thanks to everyone who sent in dreams during the week. I got a terrific response. I was really happy with that. To use an American phrase, it was awesome. As of next week, this is my full time job, so I'll have a lot more time to devote to email. So do send them to me and your questions. Sometimes I'll do a dream by email only and not on the air, but either way, there is interaction behind the scenes while I work on your dreams. And if I do use your dream on the air, I will email you a link to the audio archive. A big hello to Susie, Kira, and all the students at Explorations Academy in Bellingham who are tuned in and listening from their classroom. On Thursday last week, 20th of November, they marked the inaugural dream interpretation lesson in my newly fitted classroom. So it went great, and thank you very much to them for that. I also didn't mention last week, but you can always follow me on Facebook. I post things about dreams all the time. Do dreams for people that send them in to me there. I'm looking for a way to follow up dreams I do on air as I get feedback by emails afterwards, which I know some of you are very interested in, as many of the people who follow my Facebook also work with dreams in their chosen fields like counselling and so on. So with that said, let's have a look at some of the dreams I got sent in. And before that, actually, you can call in with your dream if you're listening in now. The number is 425-373-5527 or toll free in Washington, Western Washington, 888-298-KKNW. And if you are looking to send your dreams in, you can find the details on my website, dream-analysis.com. Just follow the link to KKNW and you'll have all the details there for sending the dreams in. So please do that. So, okay, the first dream comes from Jennifer. She says, here's her dream. It's quite short. I was standing high above the sea with a wheelbarrow watching a polar ice cutter ship coming into the harbour. It was breaking through the ice. I needed to go down to the ship, but it looked too steep, sort of like a cliff. Okay, so when we see a harbour in a dream, you think about what ships do in a harbour. They berth in a harbour. It's a symbol for our own birth, and quite a common one too. But even if you didn't get the pun on birth, their dreams quite often have puns. It's always fun to find them. But if you didn't get the pun on birth, you think about a journey on a ship begins or ends in a harbour. So it's going to be about your life journey or a stage on your life journey. Anyway, when we see the birth symbol, it tells us, okay, this is what you came here for. So the dreams, whatever the dream picks up, is something that you're being asked to deal with as part of your life purpose. We don't always find it's great. We're not always told our life is meant to be amazing, like King Arthur's or Lancelot's, etc. But it's still, whatever our dreams say to us is what we need to work on. And here, the dreamer is looking at a polar ice cutter coming into the harbour. So this means that there's somebody in her life who is polar opposite to her, or, you know, if she says black, they'll say white. It's somebody like that. Or else it's an individual who can flip their state of mind. So they're with you one moment and against you the next. And so she's looking at her life and saying, okay, why is this happening? Why are these people around me? How do I get rid of it? But the dream says, no, look, you are here in order to deal with this. You're to deal with this so that you can not be affected by people who are like this. And of course, to get to that state, you've got to work on yourself. And you have the wheelbarrow there. I asked you by email what the wheelbarrow meant to you, and you said work. So it's saying you have to do the work, and indeed it is that. So a wheelbarrow with soil is about doing the groundwork, preparing the groundwork. So it's always good in a dream. Quite often we have in dreams, other individuals are doing the groundwork. They're working in a field, working with the soil, or laying things around our house, and it's always a good symbol. It shows, look, the work's already started. Now you can move into reaping the rewards on this. In your case, though, you're high above this and you're looking at it. So rationally, you're saying to yourself, I don't really want to get down there and do this work. But when you know it's part of your life purpose, rather than something that's just like a thing that is holding you back, then it's a great push to say, okay, go ahead and do it. So next dream is from Jane. She says, I was having a conversation with a female opera singer who was a normal build. I remarked to her that I had always thought that successful female opera singers were physically large women. I then remembered American opera singer Renee Fleming, who is not a large woman. The next scene, I'm sitting with two friends on the front row of an opera performance. This is my first opera because normally I'm not an opera fan. I was surprised at how easily I understood the play. Then a male opera singer with intense blue eyes and fair hair that was thinning on top was standing on the stage just opposite and to my right. He was singing directly to me, and I became uncomfortable with the intimacy of the connection. I realized I was leaning forward in my seat and sat back. Okay, so that's the dream. I picked a few of these that fit in this category for today. I may not get to them all, but that's okay. It's far better than me running out of dreams, at least from my perspective it is. So let's have a look at the dream from the top, and it'll begin to make more sense. At the beginning, every dream seems like it makes no sense, but that's normal. So I was having a conversation. So a conversation tells us this dream is about communication with a female opera singer who was a normal build. So singing in dreams represents the ability to channel. That's the ability to communicate with spirits. When you think about that, a lot of people go, okay, that's a bit spooky, but it isn't really. Even people who are into the spiritual field, they find it sometimes a bit spooky. But if you consider that you are a soul inhabiting a body right now, then to communicate with other souls who are not incarnated is actually quite a natural ability. And we have to sometimes demystify it to ourselves so that we take away some of the layers or blocks that we put in place ourselves from doing this. So here, it's about communication and communication with the spirit world. But she sees the singer is a normal build. So she doesn't see this as normal, or she sees it as strange. But the dream is saying, no, look, you're normal. This person is normal. I remarked to her that I had always thought that successful female opera singers were physically large women, but then I remembered one who wasn't. So, okay. So it's saying, I have issues with this, and that's why she imagines that the person who's doing it in the dream or symbolizes it in the dream is somebody who has weight issues. We can forget that it's weight, but it just symbolizes the issues. But then she remembers, okay, I guess you don't need to have weight issues to do this. So again, I can do this and I can look good. But the looking good is about me being happy with myself doing this. In the next scene, I'm sitting with two friends on the front row of an opera performance. So two comes up a lot in dreams about channeling. And the reason it does is because it's one of the few abilities that requires both male and female energy. So two comes up a lot because it's about communication and dialogue. So two is also about that. But also requires both male and female energy working in harmony in order for you to be able to channel. So she's in the front row of an opera performance. So this is going to be about me preparing or looking at me doing this because I'm seeing somebody else doing it on the stage. This was my first opera because normally I'm not an opera fan. So when we realize the opera here is about the dreamer's channeling ability, she's saying she's not a fan of channeling, and that's fine. We know that because she's already put other things in there to say it's not normal. I was surprised at how easily I understood the play. That's her next sentence. So this is good because it's saying, look, even though you're not a huge fan, you don't realize maybe that you have this ability, you will be surprised how easily it works for you and how easily you do understand the communication. So that's really good. Next part is a male opera singer with intense blue eyes and fair hair that was thinning on top, was standing on the stage just opposite and to my right. Okay, both singers. So we have two singers. We have a female and a male opera singer on the stage. And like I said, it requires male and female energy working together in balance. So it's not surprising to see that. The two opera singers, a man and a woman. But he has intense blue eyes. Blue is a really nice color in dreams. Intense, it represents your philosophy of life. So when you see blue in a dream, it says something that you're being asked to add to your philosophy of life. So when people say to you, hey, Jane, what is it you do? Include, even if it's only in your mind, that I'm X, Y, and Z, and I'm also a channel. And then eventually move the channeling up to the front of the list and then eventually start saying it to people because it is something you are going to do in reality for other people. But he has fair hair. That's common in dreams because he's a guide and she's a guide. They're both guides. They quite often take a position in front of you and to your right because psychologically that's the position of most influence to us. So, I mean, that's well known in psychology, but our dreams use it too. So he's in the perfect position to exert the most influence over you, and that's what he wants to do in the dream. And the fair hair or blonde hair is a common trait for guides to have. And hair represents thoughts, comes from your head. And in dreams, fair hair represents purity of thought. And guides are pure, have purity of thought. So it's good to see it in a dream. But it's thinning on top. So this thinning is saying that the dreamer has a reluctance to think about this ability. So not giving it enough thought would really be the way to put that. Being bald in a dream would be giving it no thought whatsoever. So anyway, he was singing directly to me, and I became uncomfortable with the intimacy of the connection. Now, even here, she says it's a connection. So we know channeling requires a connection with the spirit world. And in the dream, it's being pointed out that it's a conversation that's been said directly to her, but she's uncomfortable with the intimacy of the connection. So she knows it's a connection. She has to get more intimate, more in touch with this connection, and build on it and trust. And that's the way it is for everybody who learns to channel. You've got to build up this level of trust that you have with it and become intimately familiar with it. It's the intimacy that is really good. And eventually you get to the point, believe it or not, where you trust what you're going to get on the connection more than the person who's sitting opposite you. So if you get information and pass it on and the person says, no, that doesn't fit, you can get to the point where you know it does fit, and maybe you need more information for the person sitting opposite you to get the relevance or get the exact connection. And that's really good for everybody involved. So anyway, the dream is saying that she's uncomfortable with this. I realized I was leaning forward in my seat and I sat back. So again, leaning forward is leaning into this. So I wouldn't be surprised if Jane is already looking at the idea of this but not comfortable with it because she's leaning forward. That's positive. But in the dream, it finishes with she sat back. So again, it's like taking a back seat, putting it on a back seat, because it all relates to the subject matter of the dream, which is channeling. So it's saying that you're holding back on this ability, but you've got it. So please do get into it. And it's really good. It's so practical. It's surprising how useful it can be in your life. Okay. Next dream, just say the phone number again if anybody wants to call. It's 425-373-5527. And I promise to go easy on you. Okay, so this one is from Pat from Ireland. It's quite interesting, actually, the number of people who wrote after last week's show and having listened to the archive. Things have very much changed. And people whose dreams I did last week all wrote to me afterwards as well. Which is unusual. I normally wouldn't get that. In Ireland, I wouldn't get that. People wouldn't be emailing and talking about the relevance. So that's really cool. And that's why I was saying I'm going to look for a way to follow up. So it's not just what you hear on this, but you can get more detail if you want on Facebook or on my website. Anyway, so in Pat's dream, he has two short dreams. The first is road carnage. I'm in a car traveling on a dual carriageway. For those who aren't Irish, a dual carriageway is usually a 4-lane highway. Goes two different directions. So I'm on a dual carriageway. A car crash happens. I'm seeing all of the carnage now from the side of the road. There are lots of cars crashing into each other. There are many people dead or have lost limbs. I'm never hurt, but I'm a little frightened and sad. So, okay. We talk about baby carriage. So to make the connection, the carriageway here is going to bring the dreamer back to birth as well, or back to the womb, which is what the carriage is about. We still use it. We say miscarriage for losing a baby in the womb. So it's bringing the dreamer back to then and saying, look, your fears come from there. So there's things that bring up fears for this dreamer in life today. They're not discussed in the dream. The dream doesn't say what they are. But the dream says, look, they come back from your they come from your childhood. And that's really, really useful to know. Because when we know it's that, we can then start looking at that and say, and also let ourselves off the hook and say, okay, I'm not mad. Because I know I have these feelings, but I've always wondered where they come from. So here they come from childhood, and it's about a very difficult or traumatic birth and or early stage of life, infancy time of life. And the reason we say it's very difficult because there's the car crash that happens and all the carnage and people losing limbs. Now the dreamer says, I'm never hurt, but I'm frightened and sad. Now it's both about birth and it's also about the heart and emotion. So it's an emotional pain as well, because the highway, that's what the highway represents and the dual carriageway represents. So he says he's never hurt, but he was hurt in reality. And the fact that you even point out that you're not hurt that's the way you would like it to be, but it isn't the way it was. And I'm a little frightened and sad. So sadness and the hurt come together. So it comes from childhood. And when these feelings come up in life today, that's where they come from. Now, his second dream is also quite short. He says, I'm in an airplane which is going to either take off or land, and the landing airplane is about our birth. It's in a city environment, lots of very high buildings, and we're flying between them. The tips of the wings always just miss hitting the buildings. Then we either land safely or gain height, and the drama ends. Nobody is ever hurt. Not true, Pat. But there is a lot of tension during the dream. So the tension, of course, is the tension that's going on in your life now. And it's saying, look, this tension, again, to remind you, is from tension early in your life that you now have suppressed, most likely, which is why the dream is bringing it back up. So same thing, difficulty at birth, or the potential of not arriving safely on the planet, which is what the airplane landing represents, a safe arrival. So a lot of tension, a lot of close calls that happen in childhood. Now, when I wrote to Pat, he said back, he sent back that yes, as a child he was very sick and he couldn't keep solid foods down. But it'll be more than that. Why could you not keep solid foods down? There's going to be something that led to that physical issue, and that will be before the physical issue, of course. So that is definitely where you need to look, and there are easy ways to do that. I'm not going to go into it here. Cutting the ties that bind is the big one, and it's discussed on my website. But another time we'll have somebody in the studio that we can talk to who has done that. It makes more sense to talk to somebody directly who's done it and can say to you, yeah, here's why it's worth doing it, and here's what you get out of it, the huge benefit you get out of it. This dream about the plane landing, just to cover that, because it's such a common one in that symbol, it's such a common one in dreams. Planes arriving are about your arrival, and we wait for people that are coming to meet us on a plane. We wait for them in arrivals. It reminds me of a dream from a woman who had a stillborn baby, and in her dream she was in a field watching a small airplane coming into land that was going to land in the field. She knew it wasn't going to make it, or at least feared that it wasn't going to make it. It flew over her head very close and then crashed into the field behind her and burst into flames. And the force of the explosion knocked her over. Now, this was many years later when she told me this dream. But the dream was talking about how, because the plane crashed behind her, it's about a failed arrival in the past because it's behind her in the dream, and how that the emotion of that, which is the flames, affected her badly, so badly, which it did. But because she was having the dream, at the time she was having the dream, it's still saying you're still affected today by that, and that's of course understandable. Another person who had similar issues, the world has changed a lot. One woman who's 89, she had a dream that was about her losing a child, and she said to me at the time, this is many years ago now, that back then you weren't allowed to talk about them. You didn't even get to bury them. So even coming home, she would never talk about the baby who didn't make it to her husband. And many years later, that was still the issue that was coming up in her dreams. So when it comes up in your dreams, it is something you need to look at because it affects your life today. It's not, hey, wouldn't it be great to look at that? It's saying, please look at this because you don't know it. This has a huge subconscious effect on your life today. And by dealing with it, you free yourself from all the pain and anguish that goes with that. And then the pain and anguish that is in your life today, that really doesn't come from now. It just comes up now because of the issues from before. So moving on, we have Susan sent in a dream. She says, I'm on stage towards the back of the stage with Jessica Simpson or Cameron Diaz. Now, I did say I picked a few dreams that fit this category. I'm her backup singer. So singing again in dreams is about channeling. Music comes from the spirit world. If you read any books about near-death experiences, people will talk about the harmonious music they hear while in the spirit plane. So this is why it means that. But so Susan is a channel, and she's on stage. That's good. So she's not like this previous dreamer who's in the audience, hasn't gotten up on the stage yet. So she's on the stage, and she's the backup singer. So she's not. She's at the back of the stage, and she's a backup singer. So she hasn't really put herself forward, put herself into the limelight yet. But she's looking for a way to do this. Now you're everybody in a dream. So Jessica Simpson is wearing a tight dress. Jessica Simpson, by the way, is also an actress. So actresses also symbolize channeling because they're told what to say. They don't say their own thing. They don't say their own words. She's wearing a really tight long dress. The skirt is red and possibly black, and it's so tight that she has to keep her legs crossed and walk sideways. So here this is saying, I'm going to ignore the red and black because that would mean something in particular. But it's saying the attitude you've adopted towards channeling, because clothes and dreams represent how we dress things up or how we address him or our attitude towards him. So here it's saying that your attitude towards it is restrictive. You're restricting yourself by how you're approaching it. And we can see even that this dress is so restrictive that the person has to walk sideways. So I'm not approaching this straight on. I'm taking a side. I'm not facing this head on. I'm coming at it sideways, so to speak. She kicks off one of her high heels next to the amp, and I see that the other foot she's already taken off her heel and put on a hiking boot. So a hiking boot is that's good. This is saying that when you get into this channeling, it's not just going to be pre-set up, configured, tailored settings. You're going to do this anywhere, because a hiking boot is about being able to go to the most rugged terrain, the highest points, the lowest points, go anywhere you want. So you're halfway there. You've only got one hiking boot on, unfortunately, but that's where you're going with this. So you're going to really take this outside and take it on the road and take it into places that you wouldn't expect you're going to take it. She walks sideways to the front of the stage. We had that already. I'm coming up behind her. I also have a long, skinny dress on. So again, everybody in the dream is you, but this reinforces that. Mine is black and I can shuffle forward, but it's very hard to walk. So the black in the dream tells us that Susan has fears about channeling. Again, understandable, especially if you're going to do this in front of other people. What if I get it wrong? What if I influence them in the wrong way, etc.? There's lots of ways that we can have fears, but we will overcome them. We need to overcome them, and we will. She will. I have to get myself and my dress, which poofs out below the knee and mid-calf, over a power cord draped between the amp and something else. It's hanging a few inches above the ground. I realise I'm on stage in front of a huge crowd, so I try to make a shimmy dance out of it, which is quite funny to imagine. As I try to get closer to the front of the stage where I'm supposed to be, but it's not very graceful. So there's a few things there. First of all, we have the power cord. Susan is also a spiritual healer, so that's somebody who can help somebody by putting their hands on them. They can project energy through their body and into their client. Now, this comes up in an awful lot of our dreams, these power cords, etc. Power cords, almost always power cords. So she has to get over this in the dream, but it's something that it's in her path, so it's something she has to address. So the reality for Susan is she's going to use hands-on healing. That's going to be her way forward, and she's going to channel while she's doing hands-on healing. So that's really good to know. But what's interesting here is she finds herself at the front of the stage in front of a huge crowd. So she's going to work with groups of people when she's using this ability. She may also work with individuals, but really the dream is pointing out that you're putting yourself in front of lots of people. She's at this point, by the end of the dream, she's close to the front of the stage where she's supposed to be. So she knows this is where she's meant to be. She's meant to be up front and center doing this in the limelight, but it's not very graceful. Now, grace, that's her putting it down. Grace in a dream indicates being on the Christ consciousness path or the Dharmic path, being full of grace. Turning the other cheek, that's grace. So she's saying it's not very graceful. So she's putting herself down and saying that she doesn't have, or at least she feels, not that she doesn't have, but she feels she doesn't have what it takes to do this and do this with justice. But that, of course, is not true. From knowing Susan and knowing other dreams of hers, that isn't the case at all. It is something she is going to do. And in fact, she's taken lots of steps to put herself in the way of other people to do this. So our next dream, okay, this is more a theme. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this correctly, but Pravneet writes and says that she had many dreams as a child where she was living in her aunt's house that she didn't really know. Eventually, she did end up living there in reality and got to know her older cousin, and he's 4 years older than her. They ended up having a great bond, but he ended up dying in a mysterious way. Still doesn't know how he died. And ever since then, she's had many dreams where other brothers are dying. The reason I'm bringing this dream up is this is a common thing. If you've suffered anything in your dreams, in reality, it's going to come up in your dreams, because dreams help us face our fears, help issues that have happened to us in reality. And that's the whole point of them. So she's having dreams about losing other brothers. And that's telling her, look, this is something you need to face. But it's also saying this is something that you have lived through in the past. You know, it hasn't killed you. While it's traumatic, it's something that has happened, but we have the fact that she can go back and say, okay, I had these dreams before I got to this point. It's saying to her, look, life has a purpose. You knew in advance you were going to get to this stage, and the fact that you lost somebody when you were in this stage is huge and very traumatic and important. But the dream is telling you, remember that life has a purpose, and everything is taken care of. And even though people leave us in our lives, it's meant to happen. Some of these things are meant to happen, and the whole point of the dream is to give us solace and help us overcome the fact that this happened. But it's not going to happen again. The dream that you're having, the fact that you're having dreams of other brothers dying, does not say this is going to happen to you again in your life. Nothing like that at all. It's just saying that this is an issue and it's affected you. So you need to look at it so that you can get past the fact that this happened and live your life again, knowing your life has purpose. The next one is a comment from Rosemary Campbell. She says, as a psychic, I've learned that dreams, words, and conversations with me from the world beyond is the way that spiritual guides and others communicate with us back on Earth. This is, hugely true. We have people who are clairvoyant that get images from their guides by way of channeling. They use the same symbols as they do in dreams. There's no point reinventing a language that already works well. So people who are clairvoyant will also get those things in their dreams, and you can interpret them the exact same way as dreams. I'm going to have a few people in who are clairvoyants and cover that in a future show. So, okay, we don't have any more time to cover other dreams, so I'll just remind you, send your dreams by connecting to dream-analysis.com. The details for sending them to me are there. I will email you if I do use your dreams on the show, and I will also email you if I do your dream outside the show. Thanks very much to everybody for listening, and see you next week.